Hey y'all, this is Katie, and I want to go ahead and preface this video by saying that I'm aware that this is probably a horribly inaccurate portrayal of a British pub. I've never been to England, which is probably incredibly apparent from watching the speed build to a lot of you. I just basically used reference photos off of Pinterest and did the best I could, so I just wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way before anybody told me how awful this was. But yeah, today's speed build is a British pub that I wanted to include in Windenburg. I really wanted to put a restaurant there, and I couldn't think of something that fit the theme better than a pub. We're using the lot that the Old Quarter Inn was on. I didn't feel like I would be missing much with getting rid of it. So we still called it the Old Quarter. I think we called it the Old Order. God, I can't talk. The Old Quarter Pub. So it's still called that, but and it still is a bar. It has a large bar area as well, but it's also a small restaurant. So everything's gonna look kind of cramped when you see it come together, but I have play tested it. It all should work. I had to cut out a lot of the beginning of this video actually because I spent probably an hour and a half just trying to think of the layout of this building. I wanted it to be one of those pubs that you see on like the corner of a row of, buildings, if you know what I mean. But I just could not get it to look right. The roof caused me so many issues, and it didn't look right when I just left it flat. I don't know why it turned out looking okay in the style I have it now, but I don't know, when it was just like had the door on the corner and the sign up above the door, it looked really, really dumb to me. So, and I put those booths in there, but yeah, I eventually get rid of those. I'm a complete idiot, I guess. I cannot figure out how those booths are supposed to work. I don't know. I've got the table right up next to it, but I don't know, no one would sit there when I was playtesting it for some reason. Which, in my last speed build, the BFF's house, I did put a little breakfast nook and use those booths, and it did work. But for some reason, when it came to the restaurant, no one was wanting to sit down. So I'm sure there's a really easy explanation for why that is, but I couldn't figure it out, so I just decided to change it, and I like the way it looks anyway. Yeah, that looked terrible. I'm glad I got rid of that. Ended up finding that really big piece, that big bar back piece. I think it's from Get Together. I can't remember, but I ended up using that instead. I don't know why I didn't use that from the get-go, but yeah, as I was saying, I've never been to England. I've never left the country, actually. In fact, you could argue I've never left the Southeast. The farthest I've been is Texas, which I'm not even going to get into that because a lot of people do argue that Texas is the South, but I would say if you're from Alabama, you probably understand. And maybe it's just the people I'm around, but no one around here considers Texas the South. And, that's no hate to Texas or anything. It's just not the South.
Shut the hell up, bitch.
For example, I'm not the hugest fan of sweet tea, which is like blasphemy around here, but when we did we went to San Antonio for a band trip. We had a band competition. I was in band and I played saxophone. But anyway, I wanted sweet tea just in this particular instance. And they didn't have sweet tea. They offered me raspberry tea, which was sweet. And I do like raspberry tea, so I took it. But yeah, there are a lot of people around here who, if you handed them that, they would want to shoot you. So yeah, it was pretty insane to me at that point that people did consider Texas the South because there's so many cultural differences. Maybe it has something to do with they do have a similar football culture, which I'm not a fan of the football culture. If you love football, that's great. I just think that it can get really, really toxic around here, I guess. People will just be really, really awful if you're on the opposing team. For example, in Alabama, we've got Alabama and Auburn. And of course, if you do know college football, our state dominates at college football, which is great and all. But it just gets ridiculous. I honestly couldn't care less. So again, I was a band kid, so I guess it kind of makes sense that I don't really care about football. But my point was, I am not as well traveled as I wish I was. I'm honestly kind of scared of airplanes, to get on an airplane. I've never been on an airplane. I've had the opportunity, but yeah, I'm just like absolutely terrified to get on one. I mean, I will someday because like I have to travel. My boyfriend and I really wanted to go to Japan for the Olympics, and we started planning it a couple of years ago, but I just decided not to for whatever reason. I mean, the plane might have had something to do with it, which is so ridiculous for me to let that dictate, you know, such an amazing experience. But either way, we didn't end up going. But Japan, France, England, Italy, those are all places we would really, really love to go. I mean, those are pretty like standard basic places to want to go. And I recently took an Ancestry.com test, and that kind of made me want to go even more, which again, I know it's kind of absurd. It's like, you know, I'm like white, blonde hair, blue eyed. I don't know why. I was like, I don't know what I was expecting, but just after, you know, finding out, like, I'm like 15% French, which like is really, really cool, which my last name is French, so that makes a lot of sense. And finding out that I'm a pretty large portion Irish, and of course I knew I had a lot of British ancestry. It's something like 50 or 60%. It's just interesting to have it in writing, if that makes sense. So, I mean, even though it was super obvious just looking at me that I was like 90. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I am, what was it? Oh, it was 99.2% European with the other 0.7% undetermined. And I was telling my boyfriend, I was just like, there's no need for them to say undetermined. Like, it's just more European. There is nothing else in me, like, whatsoever. I am completely just boring white bread. But it's still fascinating, you know. It's still really, really cool to see, you know, what your heritage is, even if you kind of have a vague understanding of it. So that was pretty neat. Yeah, as you can see, the upstairs, it's kind of cramped. I put a good bit of outdoor space as well, and also it was raining during this, so it looks like crap. I just needed to play test it, get some Sims in there, so I do have the BFF house in there. And I think we're about to start on that outside area, which I think looks really good. I am really, really bad at commercial lots, by the way. I need to mention, unless you haven't noticed already. It's okay. I mean, I feel like my building overall is just like, it's somewhat all right. It's just, I wish that I could be more creative sometimes. And every now and then I'll have a really, really good idea, but I wish that they came more often. Nothing too interesting to this. I just really wanted a nice little eating area in Windenburg. In the menu, there were some really, really good items for me to put on there, like fish and chips and shepherd's pie and things like that. So I was really happy to see those because I haven't played with the menu a whole lot. So I was happy to see that there were those options on there to make this as quote-unquote authentic as possible. But I just tried to clutter the insides with paintings and just make it kind of cozy, tight-knit, candelabras, piano, red and brown and things like that, to just make it super cozy, because that's kind of what I was seeing in the reference pictures I used. You know, hopefully it's somewhat decent, I guess. And then I did that super not original idea of stringing the lights over the patio area. Like, that hasn't been done 100 million times, but I mean, it looks good. People do it all the time for a reason. So, and I put those little patio chairs out there at first because I don't know. I thought that I wasn't sure if the food would properly fit on it. I wasn't sure if it could be used in the restaurant. That's probably super obvious to somebody, but to me, I just wasn't quite sure. I was like, I don't know. It looks a little bit like too small of a surface. So, and just for the finishing touches, just putting a couple of flower boxes out there and pots and things like that. All right, well, that about does it for today's build. Just putting those last little couple of finishing touches on the patio area. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you like my channel, please subscribe. I make videos about a couple of times a week. I don't have a set schedule yet, but we're getting there. I'm gonna start doing some Let's Plays. I'll get my face cam up soon. So, but for now, we're just doing some speed builds, and I will come out with a couple of Let's Plays even without the face cam. But anyway, speed builds for right now is my point, and maybe a couple of other interesting videos coming your way soon. So thank y'all for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.